Joined by Craig Button and Mike Johnson, MJ. For years now, the Leafs have had so much promise and so little production to show for it, reaching the second round last year for the first time since 2004. The question is simple. Do you believe in the Leafs this year, MJ?
The question's simple, Gino, but the answer usually isn't when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the fact is, I do believe the Toronto Maple Leafs have a very good chance of going deeper in the playoffs. And once you get deep enough in the playoffs, you have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. They're not the favorite in the entire NHL, but they're a very good team. They've made some changes, but they will still be driven by their big four forwards. That's what's going to matter the most. Morgan Rielly on top of that. The big five guys are going to set the direction and the course for this team in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. You can talk about Bertuzzi, and you can talk about Domi and Klingberg and Reeves and Nyes and Minton, whoever else might be there that is a new player. But it's going to be the veteran guys now, and they're not kids anymore, Craig. They are the veteran guys that will drive this team forward, but they're good enough. And I also think the pack has come back down. The ceiling on the Atlantic is not quite as high as it once was. If they can win the division, they got a great chance of getting through the Atlantic into the third round. Then anything can happen.
That's what we're counting on, is the rest of the field to back up as opposed to the Leafs move up?
Yes, Gino. There's two parts. My team and the other teams. If the other teams are worse, it's better for me.
You have to factor that in.
I understand it's a factor, but can you really count on that? Well,
there's lots of things you can't count on, but you factor that in terms of what you think their chances are. But Mike just talked about the core five, and that's what I'm going to call.
Okay.
You can go back and look at their history, and you can see that they've won at different stages of their careers below the NHL. They haven't come close to doing it at the National Hockey League level, and they're the ones that are going to have to drive this, and they're going to have to drive it come playoff time. When you look at the teams that win when it counts the most, their best players drive it. That's how you win in the playoffs. Yeah, you win with depth, but if you have depth and your best players aren't driving the competitive edge, standing up, pushing through the resistance, because it's going to be hard. And I'll give you an example. And I mean, when I say pushing through resistance, I've seen them do it at different levels. It's a lot harder to win it at National Hockey League level. But for them to do this when it comes to playoff time, that's what you have to. You have to find a way to take your level of play and fight through it. And I'll give you an example. The Vegas Golden Knights, an exhibition game this year. Okay, Hayden Hodgson took a run at Mark Stone. He took a run at Mark Stone. And you know who all jumped in and said, not on our time. It was Mark Stone, Alex Pietrangelo, and Alec Martinez. And that's what they have to do. When Sam Bennett's running around trying to run people, they have to stand up and fight through the resistance and say, not on our watch. You know what I'm sick and tired of with the Leafs? Hearing about, oh, yeah, it's a process. We're going to go through it. It's all going to be nice, and we'll take it one day at a time. Get mad. What you've done isn't good enough. You've been spectacular failures, and you're capable of being better than you are, but you got to stand up for yourselves and go after it.
Okay, you need more out of the core four, core five, whatever you want to do. It's one thing to say we need more from them. Do you need to give them more support, Mike, in order to be able to get more from them, or do they just need to improve their own position of play?
I think they have to just get better themselves. Like, at some point, if you're one of the best players in the world, and they are, and they paid like they are, then they have to produce. You can't say, I need more players. You're supposed to make the players around you better. That's your job as being the great player. So Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, like, those have to be good enough players for Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares to play with and be successful with in the regular season and in the playoffs. So I don't think you can see, of course, everybody wants more good players around them, but I think they have more than enough. But I will say this one area, and I think that's a reality, is that the defense is a work in progress. I don't know what the second pair of McCabe and Klingberg will look like, but I don't believe that the defense will look exactly as is when they start the playoffs. So that might be one area, Craig, where they do address a need, and it looks a little bit different by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And that gives Brad Treliving a really good opportunity to look at where his team is at and to make his own assessments. But again, back to this team, like, I've seen them do it. Like, this is more than a capable group.
Of it.
Yeah, they are. But, you know, when you come to the play, you reduce the playoffs. 16 teams are gone. 8 in the Eastern Conference. They're no good. They're not good enough for the playoffs. So you're playing good teams, and they're going to shrink your ice. They're going to make life hard for you. You got to stand up to it and resist it. I think they can do it, but they got to show me. And, you know, I don't want to hear the talk anymore. I want to see action.